Good day, friends. There is a philosophy among our people that says that the mouth cannot rest until the kola nut within its grasp are completely crushed. You know, we are social scientists, and social science, specifically political science, say the pace and the tide, nature, and pathway for development within the society. You know, I started raising some very critical discourse with regards to Nigerian politics. You know, in my previous video, I talked about the funny conception of Nigerian politics, where I tackled the issue of reliance on the political society, though very relevant, but their grip, draw their social capital from the general citizens. I talked about how the citizens on their own downplay the dynamics of citizen power. I also spoke about modeling of the milieu of the measurement of governance. Then I stopped at that. There were some issues that people raised, whether it was on the YouTube channel or some people who reached out to me to extend these discussions and all that, who wanted to take the discussion off the camera and then for us to reason deeply about the pathways for Nigerian political development and drawing from what they call practical instances and evidence from engagements in the past. It is surprising that Nigeria is a country where if there is anything that defines us, where we can have a consensus of if somebody wants to explain what is Nigeria or what interests Nigerians, faith and religion is what we are actually mostly defined by. We have a very strong allegiance to faith, whether we are Muslims or Christians and other. We are people of faith. And what do they market in faith? Hope. You know, hope. But despite that, Nigerians have more loyalty, more inclination, more defense to impossibilities than possibility. When you raise issues of governance, issues of changing leadership, issues of citizens making sure they determine how they are governed, making sure that they influence decisions that will come to affect them. The citizens who on their own aggressively return to you and tell you the impossibility of such engagement. They will tell you how and why it cannot work. And the question I ask myself, if we devote our energy on why and how it will work, we will be able to get to the answers rather than when we devote our energy in telling ourselves why and how it cannot work. This devoting our energy in telling ourselves why it cannot work actually defies and discourages result. It is a delusional demotivation. You're already demotivating yourself from action. But when you actually conceptualize how it could work, you will be able to seek solutions. You'll be able to start making effort. I need to say this, and I've said it, I need to say it repeatedly. Democracy is not given on a platter of gold. Democracy is usually struggled for. And in most instances, by the citizens who have on their own experienced the pinnacle, the peak of arbitrary, authoritarian, tyrannical governance. And when they fight, seek, and initiate democracy, the prize is eternal vigilance. We must at all time shine our eyes on those who govern us to make sure we determine how they govern and to also make sure that the benefit of governance comes to us as citizens. There is no time you install leadership and you actually go to bed. The citizens play fundamental roles in reversing authoritarian rule, sustaining or initiating civil rule, and consolidating civil rule. Those are functional roles that the citizens play. Democracy is not or bad governance. Authoritarianism and self-centered governance is not subject to auto reverse. Auto reverse is mechanism. We are a 40 engine of 40, a 40 engine of 40 machine, each one reverses its fault and start performing right. It doesn't happen in democracy. We are social beings, we are animals and all that. Ordinarily, leadership wouldn't even like to be questioned. They would like to govern at their own whims. They would like to govern at the instance and benefit of their own class. They would like to govern in ways that impress and impresses their own close circle. But governance and leadership is for the entire citizens. So the citizens who will come to be influenced, who will come under the decisions of those who govern them, have a single assignment to determine who governs them. There is no time that leadership exercise is sustained except when the citizens permit it. Once the citizen stands and remains standing, leadership will have no choice than to sit up. But then there are moods, there are branches, there are stages in this engagement. It is quite very funny. I see people who are they are for in most places where we can access government at direct reach to us. Maybe your governor and all that. The governor is even at the macro level. I have seen people who belong to institutions. Sometimes we have shared experiences in some kind of engagement. We have been in certain institutions. These guys are collectively indifferent to misgovernance that is happening in those places. They hide, even have composite alignment, anything that hurts every other person in the job and everything. They will queue behind the actors who actually unleash this harm. They actually don't want to say anything. There was a time I telling somebody in one organization I worked in the past and all that. He came and he was talking about misgovernance elsewhere. This and this is happening. This person is not doing it. This person is not doing this. I told him, say, guy, if we should talk about the reality of what is happening here, where both of us work, you will not be able to engage and sustain that discussion. The guy immediately kept short and ran away. A lot of people don't actually want to make contribution in the immediate environment where they belong to. They shy away from engaging for positive change in such environment. They don't want to be quoted. They only queue behind even the rough. They only queue behind the administrative excesses, waiting for when it will get to their turn. And then you see them on their keyboards talking about President Buhari, talking about certain governors, talking about things at the macro level where they have no direct influence. The amount of chats they extend on their Facebook pages, the amount of chat on Instagram, the amount of tweet chats and engagements on their X handle might not actually lead to any change, but that engagement in their immediate environment, saying truth to power, contributing in making sure that the positive dynamics of leadership is actually felt and benefited. Also, speaking of, to make sure that bad leadership is not rewarded through composite collegial loyalty that they didn't earn, it's actually deflected. You see them, they shy away from those engagements. And then you ask yourself question. We study socialization and agents of socialization in social studies, and that is one of the most fundamental topics we did in social studies. Where do where do we get our political and civic posture from if we do not engage in our immediate environment? Where do we pick the lessons of civic consciousness from? How will transcendence change happen if we do not participate in our immediate environment, in our immediate working place, where misgovernance is actually mostly felt? We approve misgovernance and maladministration where it affects us most, and then start talking at the macro level where the build-up of what happens at the micro level have aggravated and then have actually almost disenfranchised us from making impact. You cannot make impact in Abuja, you cannot make impact in Asorok when you cannot make impact in your immediate environment that you have reached. Your voice could be heard, your decent views, your support and whatever we have direct impact. So, dear friends, when we talk about change in governance, devoting our energy, talking about impossibilities, what makes change impossible, benefits the political class that want to seize and grasp power. When you say nothing could be done, you're just talking and talking and talking and talking. Nigeria cannot change You are actually approving and giving support to your fears instead of working towards the horizon of attainment, which is good governance.